Hello class. Today we get to do Unit 1, Lesson 6 homework, which was estimate irrational numbers. Problem number 1, we had to estimate the square root of 45. So we're asked to determine whether or not this is rational or irrational. If it's rational, we could say square root of 45 equals, and then just write a regular rational number here. But square root of 45 is irrational because there's no single number that multiplied by itself equals 45. To illustrate this, we're going to draw out a square the best we can and find dimensions that multiply to make 45. And let's say we have 6 times 8 gets us 48. Let's see, 6, 8. We had to line this up. We get 48. But to get down to 45 instead of 48, if we went 6 times 7, that would be 42. So let's draw this up. So break this down into groups. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then break this down. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 8 is 48. But I need to erase a few of these. So we have only 45. So now, using that 6 squared is 36. And our next number up would be 7, which we don't have, but we have an 8. And 8 squared is 64. So square root of 64, square root of 36. But we're missing another digit, a 7. And I'm not sure what we would do with the 7. 7 times 6 is 42, so it's not quite enough. 6 times 8 is 48, so that's too big. So let's turn to our friend, the number line. Here's 0, here's infinite negative, infinite positive. And if we had our 6 and 7 and 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be the square root of 36. 7 would be the square root of 49. And we had 8, which was the square root of 64. Well, square root of 45 is going to fall in between square root of 36 and square root of 49. So 36 comes here, square root of 49 goes right here. So square root of 45 is going to fall in between 6 and 7. So I would say square root of 45 is between 6 and 7. So it is an irrational square root. So let's try the next problem. Problem number 2 has a square root of 36. Now we can draw this out. 36 is a perfect square. So try drawing this out. Trim it up. So if I want to make a 6 on this side and a 6 on this side, so I'm going to divide right in half and then cut this into thirds. And same thing on this side, going into thirds. And so now I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have my 6 by 6 square, perfect square here. So both side lengths have the same measurement. So square root of 36 is 6, and there's a graphic illustration for it. The next one is square root of 49. So I'm going to try something here. See if I can't add on to what I already have. This is problem number 3, square root of 49. And I know the square root of 49 is 7. So I'm going to add one more column here and one more row down here. So draw my lines. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now I have a 7 by 7 perfect square. Both sides have the same dimensions. Horrible looking 7. Let's draw that one better. All right, so square root of 49 is 7. Now remember, another way to write this is square root of 49. It's the same thing as the square root of 7 squared. And like I showed in class, there's a little 2 that goes in here, but we just don't write it. It's assumed to be there. Just like when we have x to the first power, there's a 1 up there. We just don't write it. There's a 1 in the front. We don't write it. And it's all over 1. We just don't write it. So all those 1s are in existence, but we just write x. Same thing with this square root sign. It's a little 2 in here, but we don't need to write it. So with the square root of 7 squared, imagine those just canceling each other out and leaving you just 7. That's problem number 3. Problem number 4. Square root of 17. Square root of 17, let's see what we get. So if we had 1 squared, that would give us 1. And so the square root of 1 squared is 1. Let's see, 2 squared, that would give us 4. Next number up is 3. Hold on, made an error here, folks. Try doing this little graphic illustrator a little differently. Square root of 1 is 1. The next value I want to come out is 2. 2 squared makes 2. And right here, that would be a 4. So I'm going to write square root of 4, which equals same thing as square root of 2 squared equals 2. Next one I want is 3. So working backwards, 3 squared is 9. Next one is 4. 4 squared is 16. Next one's 5. 5 squared is 25. And I think that's plenty here for a square root of 17. A square root of 17 would fit right between the square root of 16 and square root of 25. So that falls between 4 and 5. So how am I going to write my answer up here? I'll write it right here. That's still on the board. Between 4 and 5. So our next one down is square root of 16. And our next one up, square root of 25. Again, these are perfect squares. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 17, there is none. So that's called an irrational square root. So this little chart's pretty handy. I'm going to leave it up there for problem number 5. Problem number 5 asks for what's the square root of 34. Well, keep on going. We left off at square root of 25 was 5. So now let's go to the next one larger. 6. 6 squared. 6 squared is 36. So square root of 36, which is also the square root of 6 squared, gives you 6 by itself. So square root of 34 is going to fall in between these two. Square root of 25 is less than square root of 34, and the square root of 36 is greater than the square root of 34. So our answer for number 5 is between 5 and 6. Last one, problem number 6. I'll write it over here. We have the square root of 100. Now everyone should know square root of 100 because we all have 10 fingers. Well, hopefully we have 10 fingers on our hands. And 10 times 10 makes 100. That's something we all memorize as little kids because that's fun stuff. Seeing tens and 10 times 10 makes 100. Fun to me at least. So now I'm going to go ahead and expand this until I get to that. So 7 squared, 7 times 7 is 49. We talked about that earlier. And next we have 8. 8 squared is 64. We have 9. 9 squared is 81. And finally 10. 10 squared is 100. Now we can go through and try drawing these shapes for all these figures. That's one way to do it. But as we found out with the square root of 45, 6 times 7 is where the number fell between. But I couldn't really draw 42 boxes and say, well, it's close to 45 because it was smaller than it. So I still had a whole section would be missing to try drawing that out. Where 6 times 8 was at least big enough to cover over top of 45, and then I could erase some. But the other one, 6 times 7, I'd have this box of 42, but then I'd have to add 3 squares off to the side. That didn't make sense visually to me. And so I didn't go ahead and go with the rest of these drawing pictograms out to try to represent a perfect square. But in this case, with the square root of 100, you could draw yourself your square. Cut it in half, cut it in half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is your 10 by 10 representation of the square root of 100. 10 times 10 makes 100. Therefore, the square root of 100 equals 10. And that's your lesson for today. Please make sure you're going on and watching these videos. If there's homework questions you have, bring them to school so we can go over them, please. Thank you.